They say better late than never, but never late is better. And for NC State football in 2025, you best not be late.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Our Monday sponsor is FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is now on the way, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 back in bonus bets. Download the app today or head on over to FanDuel.com in order to get started. Happy Monday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. Kenton, we had mentioned this past week that the NC State 2025 football schedule would be upon us. That will actually release pretty late on Monday evening. However, before the weekend, we did get a little bit further of a sneak peek into the beginning of the season. We now know, well, using some puzzle pieces, the first 6 games of the 2025 season for the Wolfpack. 3 of them will be ACC games, and technically and untechnically 4, because UVA is a non-conference game, as stupid as that is, but we'll talk more about that in a second. Coming out of the gate for NC State in 2025, it will be possibly more important than any season in recent memory. 3 ACC games within the month of September. Your thoughts?
You know, I look at this and I say to myself, it's a very interesting time because I'm not really worried about it in terms of like, oh man, we should have backloaded these games. But I'm not really excited about it in terms of like, oh, we've got a super senior team and they're going to be ready to go out the gates. It's one of those things that's like, well, I guess we're going to find out who we are early. We're not going to have to wait until later in the season to say, what type of team are we actually? We'll get a very clear glance into who we are and in comparison to the rest of the ACC right away. So I think that and I hate to say this because it's not going to sound good, but it's going to show you whether or not this team is prepared to have a much better season than people believe, or if they are who everybody on the outside thinks they are right off the bat. You'll know that immediately.
I won't lie to you. This is a little bit concerning for me because I think an unfortunate characteristic of the teams the last couple of years have been a relatively slow start. I think probably more so in 2024 than any of the other examples. We worried about last year having to see Tennessee and Clemson within the first 4 weeks and how that would potentially alter our chances for bigger aspirations at the end of the year. Ended up not mattering. But I think when you're looking at this season, you have 3 ACC games in the first month of the season. And when you're entering this season with some uncertainty based on how well is the defense going to play under new leadership with DJ Elliott, what kind of quarterback play are we going to get in year 2 from CJ Bailey? Will the offense take a step forward under Kurt Roper? There's still a lot of questions. And I get it. We got a long way to go here. We're still in January, but these are things that need answers basically right out of the gate. This can no longer be a team that sort of goes along and gets stronger as the season goes on, which you certainly hope to be the case. But if you lose 2 of these, for example, in the month of September, your season is essentially over. Your season can be effectively done by September 20th if it all goes south. That poses as potentially a problem.
I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you at all there, but I think that it's best for me in terms of when I think about what I want to see out of a team. It's best to know right away. I don't want to see you play the Island of Misfit Toys University. I don't want to see you play Coamo Community College. I don't want to see you play at Wayne County Community College. I don't want to see that the first, X amount of games in the season. I want you to come out the gate. Show me what you got. Show me who you are. And yes, the slow starts have been a feature under Doeren the past few years, but we've also got to consider they have not exactly played slouches in these early parts of the season the last couple of years. You think about the fact that Tennessee and Clemson both dominated. Yeah, sure. Both of those are playoff teams. Like, that's an actual statement. Both of those teams were in the playoffs. So, yes, you did not play well in those games. Yes, those teams dominated you, but it's not like you got off the slow starts and you were playing very mid competition. And yes, you could throw in Western Carolina and say, well, they're not a great team. What happened there? And even ECU the year before that. But the reality is, if this team is to be whatever they want to be, if their season is to be anything special, or if it's to be a year where it's like, oh, well, Doeren, you're a lame duck coach, you will not have to wait beyond game 5 to figure that out.
I think that's exactly kind of what we've been hinting at too, based on the new pieces in terms of coordinators for this team. There is a relative idea that it's either going to work or it's not going to work. Like Kenton, you were saying, I think it was last week, you have a gut feeling that this could be like a 6-6 team, possibly worse. We could be looking at a team where things do click and we go 8-4 or something possibly even better than that. I think now they potentially have the schedule to max that. And as I was saying before, the first 6 games, using some context clues, we now have in place. Week 1, we have ECU on a Thursday night. That will be the home opener. The following week, we'll play on September the 6th against Virginia in a non-conference game. Kenton, real quickly, what are your thoughts on playing UVA in a non-conference game?
I think it's foolish. I think it's really dumb. I don't like it at all, but I understand why it was done from that whole like, oh yeah, we got to do the thing and we have to play teams that are out of conference or we have to play teams that are Power 4 teams, and we don't want to play inferior opponents to kind of make our strength of schedule look better. This is foolish. Okay, if you're gonna play an ACC team, let it be an ACC game. And even worse, like with all due respect to UVA, that's not the team that you need to be playing if you're like, hey, we want to bolster our strength of schedule. My brother in Yahweh, what do you mean? What are we like? Come on, Virginia, UVA. That's the group that you look at and say like, oh, we're going to bolster our schedule. And granted, I know that has big potential to backfire against me. I get it. Hey, I know. I've seen it firsthand. But in all seriousness, that's just it's a very unserious thing to me, honestly.
Yeah, I hate the move personally because that should have been App State in that spot. And I was excited to play that game. I wanted to go on the road up in Boone and play the Mountaineers. As much as smack talk as they've been sending down the mountain to us, I wanted to go up and see what it was all about. But to substitute UVA in that spot and not even count in the conference standings. And I also want to reiterate, that was an ACC decision, not necessarily an NC State decision. The ACC wanted all of their member institutions to not have to go on the road and play G5 schools, essentially because, one, there's nothing really in it for the ACC school if you win, because you're expected to win. But if you lose, not only is it embarrassing, you're also paying a lot of money to go on the road to lose. So that was an ACC decision. In this instance, I hate, the substitution that was made there. But again, it is what it is. Then moving on, week 3, another Thursday night game, actually 2 Thursday night games within the first 3 weeks. Week 3 will be on the road at Wake Forest. Week 4, we have Duke. Week 5, we have Virginia Tech in Raleigh. And then week 6, we have Campbell in Raleigh. So another interesting thing here, of the 6 games, all 6 will be within the state of North Carolina. What do you think about that?
I look at that situation and I say to myself, like, hey, Wolfpack Nation travels well regardless, but especially if it's close, especially if it's somewhere that, like, you're not taking an extremely far trip to get to. I will say this. I look at this situation and I say, hey, you've got to show it. At the end of the day, we can talk till we're blue in the face about, oh, yeah, you should beat this team. You should beat that team. This team should beat you. That's at the end of the day, you have to show it at some point in time. Like I'm not upset about having a favorable schedule where you're not going to be traveling too far and you're not going to have to leave the state and all that. I'm never upset about that. But what I am is I'm looking at this game curiously. I'm looking at this game I'm looking at these set of games rather, saying, hey, Wolfpack Nation will either be given a reason to travel or given a reason to stay home. And we can all sit here and pretend and finger wag at fans and, oh, you should care more and da-da-da-da-da. If a product is not good, people will not indulge in that product. If the product of NC State football is not good, even if you're going over to Durham, people will say, I don't really feel like it. So it's NC State's job to give people a product. It's Coach Doeren and company's job. It's Cedric Bailey's job. It's all of these guys' job. Hollywood's mother, you name it. It is their job to put out a product that people want to see. That's what I think is very important here. And I don't want to get away from that just because these games are in the state of North Carolina. It's like, hey, do your thing. Do your thing. You know what I mean? Either you show up and show out and give people a reason to support you all around the state and all around the nation, or don't.
I think also, if done correctly, if the fan base shows out and subsequently if the team does too, all 6 of those games can be home games in a sense. On the road at Wake Forest, we know NC State fans are going to travel well. The last time we did that 2 years ago, that stadium had a whole lot more red than black and gold in it, I can assure you that. And then the second one on the road at Duke was the same thing. When we traveled to Durham last, there's a lot of red in that stadium. So again, you have an opportunity to play what feels like 6 home games in your first 6 games. That is certainly something that this team can hope to take advantage of. The product on the field will certainly have to match. Coming up next, we're going to get into a quick round ball roundup from this past weekend. This comes after a quick word from our sponsors. Our first Monday sponsor is TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting and wondering and worrying some more. Now, Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert that gives you your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus about your own day. This is also an expert that will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, and everything with 100% accuracy. Also, you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, and no worries. Now, this is Taxes. Get an expert now at TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live Service, real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Middle portion of our Monday show. Now time for a round ball roundup from basketball play this past weekend. The men's team lost to SMU. It was a 6-point loss, 63-57 in the Lenovo Center. The women's team had an emphatic win on Sunday evening over the Virginia Tech Hokies, who had given us a lot of problems in years past. A comfortable 28-point victory on that side of things. Kenton, we'll start with the bad before we transition into the good. The men's team under Kevin Keatts continued to squabble this year. Yet another loss in ACC play. An astounding 29% from the field on Saturday. 4 of 24 from beyond the perimeter. Ick. Gross. Disgusting. Any more adjectives you'd like to add in here, Kenton?
I would just like to let all of the listeners know that where I come from, squabble means to fight, and this team doesn't seem to have much of that. So I would like to say that they're squandering a ton of good momentum. This team is, it's a disappointment. It's a letdown, to say the least. And this is one of the worst. This is one of the worst times that I've ever gotten to say I told you so. And granted, I'm not saying I told you so and that this team would be this bad. I could not have predicted that. That's not the thing. But Grayson and I did look at this roster and say, who are your shooters? Where's your shooting coming from? And yet it continues to be mind-bogglingly bad. This is not, this is not the type of stuff where it's like, man, we're going through a little slump, but we'll be okay. Because Grayson and I both said last year, watching the games, this team is right there. They're about to turn a corner. Something's going to click. I would be exponentially more surprised if this team, I would be more surprised by this team making the tournament at all than I was by last year's team making the Final Four. And I mean that from a very genuine standpoint, because it just seems like there is so much. It just seems like there's so much discombobulation, and it seems like it's almost like an act of God at times that they're even in a game. So it's different from last year where it's like, man, just 1 or 2 moments go a little differently. And this team is in a very different spot. And I remember there was DJ Burns was sick and hurt for a certain period of time. And then DJ Horn was out. And then I want to say Jaden Taylor missed time last year too. So it was all these guys missing time where Grayson and I knew if they all get healthy at the right time and things just start to click, they'll be really good. This year, you can't put your thumb on it. You can't nail down like if this is a thing that can change and it has a high potential to change. So, this is the least fun part of the round ball roundup.
We threw around the word apathy a lot last year, and it feels like it, to the nth degree this year. I think what hurts the most coming off of last year is just seeing the different ways this team can find a way to lose a game. Like one of the most shocking statistics that came out of this game, SMU turned the ball over 15 times. NC State only turned the ball over 6 times. That's a staggering discrepancy, and yet you still find a way to lose by 6 points at home, nonetheless. We talked earlier in the season how NC State's defense was a relative point of strength, which I still do believe to be true, but sometimes when your offense is so putrid, having a good defense, it doesn't even matter because it's not good enough. They can't be locked down enough to cover for how bad they're struggling to score the basketball. As I told you, 29% from the field, 16% from 3, 4 of 24. And we're talking about just 3 of those shots falling, you win the basketball game. There's been too many examples of that, like that kind of line. If this amount of shots fall in this game, you win the game. And it's always like 1 or 2, in this case, 3. They haven't been getting blown out, which perhaps that'll change on Monday evening at Duke, but they're able to stay in games until they find ways to shoot themselves in 1 foot and then both feet. And then boom, you're on a 4-game, 5-game slide, and there's still no answers to be found. So that is the very unfortunate state of affairs for men's basketball right now. And until things change, that will be the indictment of what this team is and what they will be. Transitioning over to the women's side, as Kenta was talking about, we have a winning basketball team still in Raleigh. No surprise, they're being coached by Wes Moore. An emphatic 28-point win over the Virginia Tech Hokies on Sunday in the Old Barn. Kenton, what jumped off the page and the screen to you on Sunday's win?
I mean, what did at the end of the day, when you look at this team and you talk about how are they going to win, how are they going to score, how are they going to do all the things, you talk about balance. You talk about, hey, yes, this is going to be a guard-driven team, but I'm going to tell you something, okay? Isaiah James, 25. Sanaya Rivers, 17. Zoe Brooks, 12. Madison Hayes, 12. Zam Jones, 7. I mean, you are by and large looking at a team that, and this is no offense to the bigs because they're coming along and they're getting better. They're much improved. I think Tilda Trigger, although, the stat line doesn't quite show how well she's playing and how she's defending the rim, but she's getting better. But you're looking at a game where there was not a single power forward or center or, post, as they call it sometimes in women's basketball. There was not a single post that put up double-digit points. As a matter of fact, if you combine the amount of points out of every single one of our posts combined now together, you are not looking at 10 points, or you're not looking at over 10 points, and yet you come away with a near 30-point win. That is how explosive this backcourt is. And as the front court comes along and kind of figures it out, I think this team is going to be even better and even better. And another thing is, Wes Moore does not try to fit square pegs in the round holes. Remember the Alyssa Cunane years where it was her, Kai Crutchfield, Kayla Jones, Raina Perez and company? There was a lot more of a post-centric game going on because you had one of the best post scorers in the nation. You had a post scorer that could step out and hit the 3. You had a post scorer, all conference, all American, all the things. So Wes Moore could play through her and feel comfortable with that, and everything was good. Now that we don't have that to the same extent, he's just like, oh, okay, that's fine. Hey, guys, we're kind of going to invert this thing, actually. We're going to let the guards lead it all the way, and it's been great to see.
Yeah, he does a great job at adjusting, to Kenton's point. Coming into this season, obviously, their biggest weakness was going to be the front court when you lose the biggest transfer that was heralded for you over the offseason. What were you going to be able to do in combining pieces to still get a lot of production out of the front court? He's still finding ways to get the most out of Collier or Awo or Trigger in this sense, kind of picking up a new position on the fly and having to learn it, and not just learn it, but excel at it to give this team a shot. And that's all while you have your guard play, which was going to be the engine in this car for this season, but they're still getting it done. Isaiah James is one of the best guards in college basketball. We know this, but she continues to show you on a consistent basis. 25, 5, and 4, outstanding performance. And to win like this over Virginia Tech feels especially good because, like I said, they had given us some nightmares these last couple of years, including on the road and at home in Reynolds. To put it down on them like that while you're still gaining momentum, again, I think that's 14 out of the last 15 games that Westmore and the women's basketball team have won. It seems like they're really catching their stride at the right time, and they're going to need it because February may just be a gauntlet for this team. But if they can continue to push the right buttons and pull the right cords at the right time, this team will find ways to win games instead of lose them like on the men's side. So not a surprise, the Westmore coach team is the team that's impressing the most folks this season in college basketball at NC State, but another great win for the ladies on Sunday. And that brings us to the next game here on the schedule, the men's game in Cameron Indoor Monday evening. What are we about to witness? Kenton, we're going to talk more about this after a quick word from our sponsors. Our second Monday sponsor is FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is almost here. One game, two teams, and endless possibilities. There's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super, and I do mean super, easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, well, that's just icing on the cake. Download the app today or head on over to FanDuel.com in order to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's FanDuel.com in order to get started. Bet with FanDuel, the official partner of Super Bowl 59. Last couple minutes of our Monday show. NC State men's basketball is on the road Monday evening in Durham, in Cameron Indoor, facing one of the best teams in the country. They do have a date set with the Duke Blue Devils. Much different this time around. Obviously, the last two times we saw Duke had NC State feeling pretty good about themselves, a win in the ACC tournament and then a win in the Elite Eight to advance to the Final Four. My, have things changed since then. NC State now stands at 9-10 so far this season, 2-6 in conference. Duke, on the other hand, 17-2, 9-0 in conference play, have not lost a game since November the 26th. Kenton, are you giving NC State a realistic shot to do what feels like the unthinkable on Monday night as 21-point underdogs?
If Coach Kevin Keats can convince those young men to go take on hell with a squirt gun filled with holy water, sure. Sure. I guess. I'm going to tell you something. Cooper Flagg he's phenomenal. That young man, what can't he do on a basketball court? And then you say to yourself, well, it's just Cooper Flagg. If you stop him, actually, no. They've got this tall Sudanese kid named Malawach. And I'm going to tell you something. You take up something soft to the rim around him, you will have to watch your shot go to the third row. So I'm a little worried. I'm a little concerned. I'd be lying if I said I believed in NC State in this game. We have a puncher's chance if we show up, and that's about it. That's about it, because I think this Duke team is quite literally superior to this team that we're fielding in literally every single way. And I keep trying to find a hole in this Duke team. And if you look at their losses early, it was literally like, oh, yeah, your main guys are freshmen. They make stupid freshman mistakes. They're not making those mistakes anymore, friends.
Yeah.
So, it's how your parents used to tell you they went to school, 12 miles through 3 feet of snow uphill both ways. That's what this game may feel like. And, just watch and hope everybody has fun, Wolfpack fans. That's what I would say more than anything. Don't get your hopes too high for this.
It's very interesting in the beginning of the season. It felt like Duke would potentially be a little bit of a slow burn this year, being that they are relying on Cooper Flagg and Konkanippel and Malawach, 3 freshmen, very talented freshmen, but how far could they take this team? To Kenton's point, they are growing at a rapid pace. Cooper Flagg is now really looking to be the type of player that we thought he'd be as he entered the season. Took him a little bit of time, but good Lord, has the kid found his step now. He's averaging 19.5 points a game, 8 rebounds, 4 assists. He can do legitimately everything. He's a Swiss Army knife, all the talent in the world, and he provides a lot of problems for an NC State team that A, cannot rebound very well, B, cannot score very well. Duke is one of the better defensive teams, not just in the conference, but in the country. They hold teams to an average of 59.8 points a game. NC State is only averaging 66.5 in ACC play. This feels like the unstoppable force meets a piece of paper, and those two things are on a collision course because NC State has a mountain to climb if they are going to do the unthinkable on Monday night. As I told you, 21-point underdogs. I, too, would be lying if I told you I think NC State can pull it off. Anything can happen on any given night. That's college basketball for you. I don't think this can happen on the Monday night. I think it will really test the theory that Keats teams are getting close. Like they're losing by close margins. They're not getting dominated anywhere. This might be the game where that changes.
Yeah, right now it feels like we got Flex Seal on the Hoover Dam, and this moment feels like the one where it kind of things kind of get out of hand, and I'll leave that right there because I'm thinking to myself, you can't shoot well, so you can't drag their bigs out of the paint. You're not that great at finishing at the rim, so well, what are you? And mind you, you're not that great at finishing at the rim over teams that have much less length around the rim than Duke. And even if you do make them foul you, you're not that great of a foul shooting team. And meanwhile, they've got at least 2, maybe 3 guys that they're not going to be in that green room very long on NBA draft night. So, I mean, hey, I just hope everybody has fun.
Let's all gather around and watch some Wolfpack basketball on Monday evening. 8:30 tip-off in Cameron Indoor. NC State is a 21.5-point underdog. Best wishes to Kevin Keats and the Wolfpack. Make us proud, I guess we should say here, to close you out here on Monday. Thank you all so much for joining us. Be sure to hit that like button, drop your comments in the comment box, mash that subscribe button if you have not already. We'll see you back here on Tuesday for more, and until then, go Pack.
Go Pack.